Hello, welcome. I'm Siva Ramakrishnan. I'm the Director of Young Adult Programs and Services here at the New York Public Library. Thank you to everyone who's joining us today. I'm delighted to introduce today's special Pride-themed Banned Book Club event, which is part of NYPL's Books for All campaign. So at the New York Public Library, we believe in the freedom to read. We started this banned book club in response to the alarming rise in book bans and challenges across the country. The American Library Association recently reported that in 2023 in the United States, we saw the highest number of book challenges since they started keeping records more than 20 years ago. The number of titles targeted for censorship at public libraries rose by 92% in 2023 compared to the year before. And the majority of these books, or challenged books, right, are for young people. And they feature LGBTQ plus voices and the voices of people of color. At the largest public library system in the country, NYPL stands united with the American Library Association and libraries across the country against book bans. Through the Banned Book Club and our Books for All campaign, we are elevating and amplifying the important stories, voices, and titles that censorship attempts to repress. Thanks to this campaign, NYPL cardholders can check out a digital copy of the Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School without wait times through the end of this month using our Simply E app. If you haven't started it yet, we hope you will be inspired to do so by today's event with Sonora Reyes. In addition, I'm pleased to announce that our next nationwide Banned Book Club title, Cinderella is Dead, by Kaylin Barron, is already available right now to readers across the country with or without a library card through Simply E. We hope you'll join us to read that book and talk to Kaylin at a special event and an author talk that's going to be online on July 25th. All right, so our author today is the wonderful Sonora Reyes. Born and raised in Arizona, Sonora Reyes is the author of the Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School and the young adult novel, The Luis Ortega Survival Club. In Sonora's sharply funny and moving debut novel, The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School follows a queer Mexican-American girl called Yami navigating Catholic school while falling in love and learning to celebrate her true self. It was a Young People's Literature finalist at the 2022 National Book Awards, and we're particularly delighted to be highlighting this book and Yami's story as we celebrate Pride Month this June. Sonora writes fiction full of queer and Latinx characters in a variety of genres. With current projects in both kid lit and adult categories, Sonora is also the creator and host of the Twitter chat #QPOCchat, a monthly community building chat for queer writers of color. They currently live in Arizona in a multi-generational family home with a small pack of dogs who run the place. Outside of writing, Sonora loves dancing, singing karaoke, and playing with their baby nephew. So today, Sonora is in conversation with Caitlin Coleman McGuh, who's an associate director on NYPL's young adult team here at the library, and has been an integral part of shaping this campaign. Along with choosing the books that we've been highlighting as part of the campaign, Coleman has also designed the national book discussion questions that have generated so much positive feedback. We are delighted to have these two in conversation today. Thank you all again for being here, and over to you, Coleman.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Siva. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. And especially thank you, Sonora, for joining us as well. So to get started, tell us a little bit about Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School.
Oh, it fell. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School follows Yamilet, who is a lesbian and gets sent to Catholic school. She follows her brother there because he's been getting in a lot of trouble at their old school, which is a public school, and their mom decides to send them to Catholic schools so that he can get out of that influence, and she follows him there because she wants to protect him and make sure he's doing okay. So she goes back into the closet at Catholic school and decides that she's going to be super stealth and like never fall in love again and just make her mom proud and keep her brother out of trouble. And all of those things are maybe a little more difficult than she had anticipated. So
There are so many great characters in this book. There are so many great story arcs. Who was the most fun to write?
probably, okay, fun might be the wrong word, but I loved writing Cesar, the brother. I just feel like I related a lot to him, and um, he was funny, but he's also like really not what he appears from the first glance. Also, I really enjoyed writing Bo. Bo is the love interest, and she is just so fun for me. I feel like she and Yami were kind of like opposites in a way. To like, Bo is kind of everything that Yami like wants to be, like wants to embody, of like that bravery and that like outspoken, like she's not afraid to say who she is and what she stands for, whereas Yami feels like the desire to stand up and say things the way that Bo would, but maybe she's a little jealous of like how Bo is just able to do that. So I had fun writing Bo too. There were Hunter. Hunter is maybe the favorite. He is like just a random side character. He's kind of like a himbo, and he's just like funny. I don't know. I really like the side, like the small characters are the most fun to me. Like that like have like one page of screen time. I'm like that one. Yeah, Hunter was fun.
There are a lot of fun characters. Was anyone difficult to write?
Yes. Probably the hardest was Yami, because I'm fully in her head the whole time, and so I had a lot of my own trauma that I had to really like delve into and figure out how to process through her, because she was going through some of the things that I went through. And I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to like get so deep into those topics, because I wrote this book because I thought it was going to be easy, because I always wanted to write a book, and I like had the challenge to like write it. It was for like the National Novel Writing Month, and I was like, okay, peer pressured into it, but all my book ideas were like fantasy, sci-fi, like really, really like in-depth worlds with like big magic systems and all that. And I was like, and it was October 28th when I decided that I was going to do it starting November 1st. I was going to start writing the book and finish it by November 30th. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't have time to build a magic system, but what I do know is what it is like to be a lesbian at a Catholic school. So I'm like, I'm going to write this easy thing that I know that I don't have to make up a lot of world building for. And it was not easy at all. It was really hard, actually, but yeah.
I love the like casual, I'll just re-engage some trauma. It'll
Yeah,
be
I was just
easy.
like, I'm just gonna therapize myself from my Catholic school trauma. Yeah, but it was a tough time, but I did it.
And she's an incredible character.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Bo. So Bo is really loud, very proud, very defiant, openly challenges a lot of the unfair systems that she encounters. So what if people feel like they can't speak up in that way? Are there other ways that they can bring about change?
Yes, for sure. So I think what I wanted to do in this book is kind of show like a bunch of different ways that people can embrace themselves. Bo is just one example of, being super loud and proud and challenging anyone who is like not supportive. meanwhile, you have like for me, when I was in high school, I really turned to like online spaces to get out that like I still was loud and proud, just like in secret, like on Tumblr or whatever. Like I was anonymously loud and proud, but like on there, I was like so like in a community of people who understood me, and I was able to talk about my experiences and share things with people who had similar experiences. So it was like I really do believe like, yeah, like being online has its pitfalls. Like there's good and bad with it, but I found so much community and hope and just like a loving space of like a bunch of people who understood me online where when I wasn't safe to have it in person. So I think that is one way, is like kind of finding your community in a space that is safe for you, and it doesn't even have to be your name or your picture. It could just be like an anonymous, thing. And then another way, I think that, if we're talking about like trying to make a difference, like my biggest personality trait before I was like out was being an ally. Like I was such a big ally, and I didn't know that I was queer, but like I, like I would get into like arguments and shouting matches with people about like gay rights, and like I was like, but I'm straight, like so like, if you aren't ready to like claim something, like you can always even if you're self-distant, you can still, stand up for something without having to put your name on it. That's another way I think that it kind of felt a little safer for me. But yeah, I do think that even if you're not like shouting and standing up all the time for these things, sometimes it is just like the little quiet moments that really make a difference. Like even just like if someone is saying something like bigoted about like, trans people or whatever, and you just like it doesn't even have to be an argument. It could just be like, you don't have to give them any of your time, but like just kind of a little comment to like let them know that that's not like where the conversation is going. Like, oh yeah, like I'm not really into like talking crap about people who aren't here or something, and just like kind of like, I don't know, I'm a passive aggressive type person. So I will just say something to like make them feel like, I don't like what you just did, but we're just gonna move on. Like that's fine. Like we're just gonna move on, and like it doesn't have to be an argument. But yeah, I don't know. That's just me.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And on the lines of kind of finding your community, I think something that was really cool to see in this book was this friend group and family group with a lot of gay people in it, because that's both like the dream, but it's also what life is like, and it's really important to find your community of people. So why was it important to write so many different kinds of LGBTQ characters and allies?
So I think in real life, we kind of tend to flock together. Like, I feel like there's a lot of books and TV and movies and stuff where you have like one token gay person, and like that's never been my experience, unless you're like, I feel like that can be true for like people who are like either closeted or in like a really small town or whatever. But for the most part, where there is one, there are many. So like, if like in my friend group, I don't think I have any straight people in my friend group. Like I don't think and that was like not on purpose. That's just like, we just gravitate towards each other, and like, I think it's like realistic to just like have that kind of gravitational pull towards people who would like understand you. And I think it just happens naturally. So I did want to show like multiple, and within families, like, maybe I won't say too much, but it's really not uncommon to have multiple, queer people within one family. Like it's not an uncommon thing at all. So, yeah.
And I like that it just shows so many different kinds of experiences that you can all identify as queer, LGBT, trans, but you're also having different experiences with that identity.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
For sure.
Talking about coming out, so both parents in the book have very different, this isn't a total spoiler, but they have very different reactions to Yami coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom takes a little bit of time to process, but then really decides to support both of her kids.
Mm-hmm.
And their dad chooses to pull away and not support his kids, which I think is really hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose to write two different reactions?
So I wanted to kind of show that, you know, people tend to surprise you. Like, for me, it was not always the person that I thought was really going to be there for me that ended up being the accepting one. Sometimes it was the person that I had written off as like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to just like disown me or whatever. And then they were the one who like was there, you know, like I don't know if any of you like follow like David Archuleta, but like that new song like Held Together, that like makes me think of this book because it's like really like his mom like didn't talk to him for like 2 weeks after he like came out and left the Mormon church, and then she said like reached out and was like oh my god, we're gonna cry. So she's like, you know, like if I have to go to heaven and you aren't there with me, then I don't want to. And so let's go to hell together. And like, that's the song. It's really good. Everybody listen to it. But yeah, so that kind of like is something that I think is really relevant for this book is like, you know, sometimes it's the people that you really don't think are going to be there for you that really come through, and the people who you kind of always expected to be there that won't. But I do think there is something really hopeful and beautiful about the fact that people will surprise you and it's going to be okay. And like, even if someone who Yami would have thought was going to be there for her isn't, like she has this whole other community of people who she didn't think were going to be there for her, and they are fully supportive. So
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So let's talk about Yami's brother, Cesar. He's a boisterous guy. He's always joking around, but he's also in a lot of pain. So I have two questions about him. I guess, what do you think Yami does to support her brother that really matters? And then if there are people watching who feel like Cesar, what would you like them to know?
Okay. I think, okay, honestly, what doesn't Yami do for Cesar? Like, she does everything for him. Like, even if she's misguided with some of the things that she tries to do, every decision she makes is, like, with his best interest at heart. And this kind of is, like, it was, like, an experience that, like, I think a lot of, like, culturally, a lot of, like, Mexican families, they have, like, this, like, pressure on the like daughter, especially the older daughter, to protect the younger son, or like the boy needs to be like, he's the baby, he needs to be protected, and she has all this pressure. And so she really like lives her life trying to make sure he's okay and make sure that like he's just gonna be like happy. And even when she doesn't see what he's really going through and she misses some of the signs, it's because she's so busy trying to get them in a better situation. She's trying to like work so that if they were to get kicked out, then like they'd have a place, you know, and she's just, everything she's doing is for him. And yeah, I think, which maybe isn't such a great thing for her, but she really, really does love him and wants what's best for him, even if she might be wrong about what is best for him. But yeah, and then for anyone who feels like Cesar, I'm gonna say something. I'm not saying that there's gonna be more to this story. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
But Cesar has a whole story of his own.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say about that. But yeah, I really want to. I hope that people who read this book who see themselves in Cesar, can see that, like, you know, even if at the end of this book he's not magically fixed or magically 100% better, like there are a lot of. I just want people to feel seen. I want people to feel like, okay, you're not alone. Like, this is a very common experience that a lot of people go through, and there's so much more to his story that I hope that we can all experience soon.
No, I think I know I'm excited to hear more about him and his story, and I think the idea that loving someone is messy and you're gonna make mistakes in it, but that it's still worth doing and it still means a lot. I think it's a really nice takeaway from all of that. A slightly lighter question. The chapter titles in this book are really fun. They're modeled after the 10 Commandments. So there's like make unto thee non-racist friends and thou shalt not self-sabotage, among some other good ones. Do you have any favorites, or did you have to cut any?
I did have to cut some. Because as I was revising the book, sometimes the content of the chapters changed, and so I actually didn't have room for that chapter title anymore. There was one that was like, thou shalt not commit, period, like just thou shalt not commit. And I thought it was funny, but then the story changed, and so it didn't make sense anymore. But what's my favorite one? I really like, okay, my favorite might be like one of the less funny ones, but it's like, remember thy ancestors, keep them holy. That one, because I just really like that chapter, and how with the baile folklorico and her experience when she's watching them, and it's like her first time like since being at Catholic school, just seeing like a stage full of her own people just being celebrated. And like, I think that chapter is really meaningful to me. And then also when the shift happens from the commandments to the code.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if anyone knows like the Mexican like code of the heart, which is in lak esh alak in, which is, and then the poem that follows is, I want to say it in English. It's, you are my other me. If I do harm to you, I do harm to myself. If I love and respect you, I love and respect myself. And that is kind of like the theme of a lot of this book, with specifically her and her brother. And so at one point the chapter titles shift from being commandment based to like the code of the heart. And I like that.
I liked it a lot because you're really paying attention, and they match Yami being kind of outwardly funny as a cover to then being more inwardly soft and sincere too, which I think is a really nice arc.
Thank you.
So one of the characters really stood out to me. Doña Violeta was really special. She is an older character who's grieving and kind of removed from the community, but Yami and Cesar take care of her. She's then able to show up and sort of help them to get through her grief. So what inspired you to write that kind of community intergenerational care?
Yeah, so that's something that I kind of grew up with. Is like a whole community the whole community comes together when someone's not okay, you know. So like with Doña Violeta, they like, when she's grieving, her husband passed away, and so she's grieving, and so the whole neighborhood, like everyone will bring her like food, like they bring her like, they'll like, some of the kids will like mow her lawn for her so that she's, you know, not because she's not able to take care of herself and her property, so like everyone's taking care of her because she took care of them when they were younger, and she would babysit all the kids, and she basically raised the neighborhood, and so now they're like kind of paying it back. And I feel like that community care is so important for a lot of us, and I think for me growing up, it was really special to have just know that like, if someone's not okay, like they'll be taken care of by the collective. It's not on any one person to make sure someone is okay. No one person has the whole responsibility on their shoulders to like get somebody out of whatever hard thing they're going through. It's like everybody together is working on it, and then it's so much of a more I don't want to say easier, but like a more fulfilling process, and it goes so much. It's just like, if you ever tried to like take on the responsibility of someone else's mental health or well-being, like that's really hard if it's just one person, you know. But having like a whole community around you, like I just kind of wanted to show that that's something that I would love to see more of. I feel like we should all be putting our communities together and like really like helping each other out when we can. So
yeah, I think there's a huge dominant narrative around individuality and being able to self-sustain. And I think that that's not actually how humans are wired.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see that larger community coming together in a lot of different ways, not just identity-based.
Yeah.
I went to public school, not Catholic school, but there were a ton of unspoken rules and some real rules that were also very stupid. What advice do you have for young people who are just trying to get through each day?
Okay. Kind of similar to one of the other answers is like find your people, find your community. Like if you have, even if it's just like a couple people, one person, your dog, whatever it is, like someone to commiserate with, or like, you know, like I've gone through periods in my life where I felt super alone and I had my dog, you know, and like I just go home and I cuddle him and that's what makes me feel better, you know, just like having one thing. I really think, you know, especially for people who are maybe going through like kind of like similar to Cesad, where it's, you know, with mental health and everything, getting through just to tomorrow can be like the hardest thing, like waking up in the morning, getting out of bed, like just the fact that like everybody in this room, like we all are here, like we all made it today, you know, and that's a huge accomplishment. Like for me, that's a huge accomplishment. I struggle every day, and that's real and that's the truth. And I think it's important to be able to talk about these things, because I think a lot of the time we look at someone who might have like success and think like, oh, they've made it, they're great, they're doing great. But, and I talk about this, like if any of you like follow me online or whatever, you might know, like I have schizoaffective disorder, so I'm schizophrenic and bipolar together. Yeah, sometimes just getting through to like the next day is literally like it's the accomplishment, you know, like that's what I can be happy about. And sometimes the way that I do that is literally like, okay, I know that, what is it right now? Okay, there's like, Stray Kids is gonna have a music video drop on this day. I have to make it to that day so I can watch that music video. You know what I mean? Like, it could be something so silly, something so like whatever it is, just like something to look forward to, even if it's not like meaningful, even if it doesn't matter. Like if it matters to you and you just make it to that point, and then when that happens, celebrate it and make it to the next milestone. So like for me, that's how I do it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I also think that sometimes your community, there have been times for me when my community is characters in books, and it can be fictional characters who are going through similar experiences or going through something very different. And so it kind of gets me out of my own head and into their lives, which can be a nice addition to the world around us.
For sure.
So I've learned a lot from all the young people that we work with at the library. What was, aside from obviously it being just as hard to write about Catholic school as the fantasy world, what was something you learned while writing this book that surprised you?
Something I learned while writing this book that surprised me is, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like in writing the book, but in like the process of getting from like draft one to like it getting published and revising and all of that. I learned a lot about my family because I did, like me and my sisters, we all went to Catholic school. I only went for 1 year because I hated it so much and I had to leave. But I interviewed my sisters. I was like, okay, cool. Like, cause we're all Mexican and we all went there, and it was a mostly white Catholic school, just like in this book. And so I was like, yeah, just like, I wanted to know like what they had been through, if their experiences were different than me, cause me and my sisters have very different presentations. Like in high school, I was a lot darker skinned than I am now. My older sister is a lot darker than I am, and my younger sister is a lot lighter than I am. So like we have different experiences. And so I wanted to know like kind of how our experiences were different and how they were similar. And I learned a lot about them. I also learned a lot about my family. Like my in who supported me through this,
yeah.
because this is like I wasn't like closeted really like as an adult to my family, but we don't talk about it that much. But I mean, look at me, like I don't like, yeah. So, but I learned that because my dad used to be had a really hard time with like homophobia and all of that. But when this came out, he was like really proud of me. And I overheard a phone call that he had with all his siblings, like all my tias and tios, and he was talking to them, and he was like, "It's called the Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School," and he was like just so proud, and I was like, "Dad, like what?" And he was like so excited about it. So that was like really great. I think it was like a big part of like kind of his journey of like accepting and learning. So that was really great. I know he read it in one day. I only know that because my mom told me that he like read it, like he was reading it.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, it was really sweet. So I learned a lot about my own family, and that was really cool.
That's awesome. So I absolutely loved seeing anti-prom in this book. The library has hosted an anti-prom for almost 20 years now. This year's is on June 21st, across the street. You have a postcard right there. Have you ever been to an anti-prom? And I guess what would your dream prom be like?
I wish I went to an anti-prom. In high school, honestly, my dream prom like would be an anti-prom, because when I went to like prom, I was really living like the way that I thought I was supposed to, you know? And so I actually had, I'm gonna tell you guys a story. So like there was a girl that I wanted to go to prom with. And then there was a guy who asked me first. And he almost set my house on fire because it was like a cake with too many candles. And it like went up in flames and we were all screaming. It was really scary. But yeah, and then I said yes, and I felt a lot of things about how the person that I was wanting to go with, like it was really sad for me. And I feel like maybe I don't know, I feel like just like the idea of anti-prom being like not conforming to like whatever societal expectations there are, whatever rules there are, like just having the anti-prom like that, I probably would have felt comfortable going with that girl. So yeah, I unfortunately have not been to anti-prom.
Well, anyone's welcome. You're welcome. It's a free event. You can bring whoever, you can dress however you want. It's a good fun time. So we hope to see you all there in a few weeks at our anti-prom. Before I ask our last question, I wanted to know, do you have any upcoming projects you do want to talk about, you can talk about, or if you can't talk about them, is there anything you recommend these guys check out?
Okay, I do. I would say keep your eyes open on my spaces, because there will be something that may or may not be related to this book, may or may not have to do with the brother. I'm not saying that that's happening, but yeah, we don't know. Maybe something will
Okay.
within the next, I don't know, month, 2 months,
nice.
You might see something about that. But I also I'm working on so many things, but publishing is so slow. But I really am excited to get into things that are not contemporary. So like dystopian, fantasy, stuff like that. But it's gonna be so long, so I don't even want to like even get anyone's hopes up about that. But as far as what you can read right now, I really like anything by Aiden Thomas. Cemetery Boys is really good. The Sunbearer Trials is really good. And the new one, Celestial Monsters, I think comes out. I don't know when it comes out, but it's going to come out. And I also, anything by Johnny Garzavilla, they just had a recent book come out called Canto Contigo, and it's like they describe this book as like it's about the epic highs and lows of high school mariachi, and it's
Okay.
so good. Also, their recent their recent book that before that was Ander and Santi Were Here, and that one is beautiful and makes me bawl my eyes out.
I think they're coming for an author event in the fall with us.
Oh my gosh,
actually.
everybody
so
go.
we'll keep everyone up to date on that too. So.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so this is the last question, and then we'll turn it over to the questions from you all if you have them. So this event wraps up your book being available to anyone in New York City who wants to read it for free. Can you talk about what that means in a time when a lot of books are being banned and access is restricted?
Yeah, I think it's really awesome that you guys are able to like provide those books when it's really hard sometimes to provide access to books. In right now, like we're in a time when like most of the books that are banned, you guys will never even hear about. You won't even know they're banned because they just get pulled off the shelves and no one knows about it. So being able to like be here and talk about like, yeah, this book is banned in a lot of places, and here we are talking about it, and we're like letting people read it and encouraging people to read it. I think that's really awesome, and I wish there was a better way to access all the books that are banned, because most of them people just don't know, like because when you think of banned books, you think of like the really popular ones that get banned, like the Hunger Games or whatever, but the most of the books that get banned, really there's no hype around it at all. They just get pulled off the shelves and nobody even hears about it at all. So I really appreciate that you guys are doing this and just kind of like shedding a light on the books that are getting banned all around, and that's really great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're just really excited how much access we can provide at the library, and I'm glad you were all down at the Teen Center to be able to check out all of the books that are down there, including Lesbiana's Guide. So that concludes the live stream portion. So thank you to everyone who tuned in.